Welcome to a very smarmy and snarky third episode of Soapbox Diaries. This one's called Rick Rubin and His Insignificance, my cute little hot take on me not understanding why everybody thinks Rick Rubin is such a superhero. Here we go. So I vividly remember pedaling my Huffy next door on weekends. Our neighborhood was this really quiet two-road loop in a suburban northern Connecticut neighborhood, a kind of connected cul-de-sac with barely any traffic and a ton of kids around the same age. Now, before you laugh at me calling it northern Connecticut, because yes, there is a northern Connecticut given the state's tiny size, hear me out. Nearly all of the state's wealth, visibility, and population are concentrated in Fairfield County, and everybody talks about Greenwich. It's just kind of the way it is. And sorry, Bridgeport friends, I've been to Birmingham, Alabama. I've been to Little Rock, Arkansas. I've been all over the place. It's just the truth. Northern Connecticut, by contrast, is its own weird little microcosm, if you will. Tobacco barns, insurance companies, an odd cultural mishmash of, at the time, glam metal style, emerging hip-hop with amusement park days at Riverside. And yes, it's Riverside for as long as I will live, even though now it's Six Flags. It was strange. It was cool. We were weird. I loved it. Anyway, I'd roll over to my neighbor's place, and music was always in the air. We all played music. We all had boom boxes. We liked the popular stuff, the metal stuff, the hair bands. We were learning. More often than not, you'd probably hear like Motley Crue, Girls, Girls, Girls. You'd hear the Black Crowes, Hard to Handle, and of course the pop stuff, Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock playing It Takes Two. Fine. That was your standard 80s fare. But running in a strange parallel universe, you had the Beastie Boys and Run DMC, and you heard Fight for Your Right and No Sleep Till Brooklyn, and of course the ever-beloved and now incredibly cringeworthy anthem of sleaze, Girls. The Beastie Boys were a phenomenon. It's a fact. Some of us were hip to Run DMC, but for most of us suburban, tobacco-picking troglodytes, I like that word, the booming rap culture of Brooklyn and the Bronx may as well have been Mars for all we knew. We didn't know Sugar Hill Gang. Hell, my dad was still trying to convince me that Elvis was the king. Maybe he is. I don't know. So what does any of this have to do with Rick Rubin? Hang tight, we're getting there. When that first Beastie Boys record dropped, any music historian, or at least Questlove, will tell you that the label wanted to replicate Run DMC's mainstream success with three white kids from Queens. They went big, they went raunchy, they built a party juggernaut. Enter Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin was the co-founder of Def Jam Records. He was the former co-president of Columbia Records and was now one of the most name-checked producers in the business. But a lot of people don't realize Rubin went to NYU on his parents' dime, supposedly to study philosophy en route to law school. They funded much of his education in the early days of Def Jam as well. Nothing wrong with that. Look, if you have the funds, spend the funds, that's cool, right? But it is privilege, full stop. So where were the Beastie Boys before Rick Rubin? They were a punk band. They were a punk band. Straight up. Kate Schellenbach, later the drummer for Luscious Jackson, was their first drummer. Then Rick came along, changed things. He had his obsession for the cartoonish bombast of WWF wrestling, fake characters, over-the-top personas, theater, right, and theatrical chaos. That influence seeped into the Beastie Boys' new image. It didn't, actually, you know what? It didn't seep. It was forced into their new image. They were remade to meet the market. The result? The License to Ill record. The tour was pure spectacle. The beer chugging, the crowd spraying, the shotgunning, raps about girls. The shows were packed at every stop. They sold a crap ton of records. They made it. And guess what? They hated it. It wasn't who they were. Rick wanted more of the same on the second record. The Beasties wanted out. Rubin was riding the hype train. The band wanted soul. They wanted 70s. They wanted vibe. Paul's Boutique, the second record, that was their pivot. It was a nostalgic, crate-digging ode to the 70s, full of style and substance. What did Rick Rubin really have to do with all of this? Honestly, I'm not sure, at least from the music perspective. But here's the thing. Rick Rubin is credited as a producer, right? What does he actually produce? Is he a hype man? Is he a brand? Is he a glorified vibe consultant? Does he write, arrange, engineer? Or is he DJ Khaled? But, with a little bit more credibility. Why do so many artists still work with him? Tell me, what am I missing? Why the endless praise? Because I'll admit, I don't get it. In my world, the real magic happens in the recording trenches with the miking engineers, the mix engineers, the mastering engineers. They capture the art. A great producer helps a band reach their best selves. A producer helps a band realize their vision in a way that they maybe couldn't on their own. Okay? Is Rubin doing that? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, let's be honest. Blood Sugar, Sex Magic, and Anima are two of my favorite all-time records and defined the 90s for me. And he was a big part of one of those two, right? But this is a guy who says he knows nothing about music and that his creative strength comes from meditating since he was 11 and things like that. So my biased brain screams, privileged Long Island kid, follows trends, hits jackpot, builds on an empire of timing and access, and keeps going. That's not Eddie Kramer. That's not Brian Eno. That's not Flood. There's no parallel here. Now, counterpoint, do I believe in growth? Sure. Do I believe in creativity for its own sake? Hell yes. In Buddhist ideals, utopian art making, all of those things, consider me dialed in. I'm all about it. But is that how you get a band to do their best work? I don't know, but my inclination is to say no. Not unless you can afford to surround yourself with the best of the best who do the actual heavy lifting. Would I do the same thing if I were him? Let's be honest. If I had sold my soul to the industry and leveraged my privilege to ride waves and shape trends until I could afford to make art just because, I'm a capitalist just like everybody else. But at the same time, I'm kind of pissed off. I'm jealous. But I do think it's all It's not righteous. It's not organic. But you know what? Companies buy that label too. So last thing I'm going to say is get off my lawn.